Hi there y'all, I'm Tom, and this is Empty Pantry Entrees, a place where you can come to learn all the skills you need to make delicious creations from only the odds and ends in your pantry. And today we're making an absolutely killer deluxe cheesesteak that comes as a direct request from one of my good buddies. I'd be tempted to call it a Philly cheesesteak, but to be honest, we're going to be putting our own little spin on it and making it in our own special sort of way. Should take about 30 to 40 minutes, all things considered, so without further ado, I think it's about time for us to move on. Alright, so in last week's video I talked about a number of new kitchen tools that I have yet to show y'all. Today, since we're going to be doing a heck of a lot of slicing, this would be a perfect time to whip out the new whetstone. We're going to let our whetstone soak until all the little bubblios have escaped from the block. Like I said, should take about 10 to 20 minutes. In the meantime though, we'll have plenty of time to break down the beef. Now, in terms of cut, I've seen recipes call for anything from beef tenderloin to flank steak. Me, I'm gonna take the cheapo cut of chuck roast. It is quite the unit of beef, if I do say so myself, and definitely more than we're going to be using for this recipe today. So to handle this, we're going to be cutting that down into a number of different servings for future use. Mainly sticking to those main parting lines and trying to trim out as much of the fat as possible. You can see these long muscle fibers stretching from left to right across this shot. When people say that you're going to be cutting across the grain, you're looking to shorten these fibers to tenderize the meat a fair bit. For now though, once we've broken down our large unit of chuck steak, we'll place each section into a freezer baggie. Toss all of them into the freezer, and trust me, chilled beef will be much easier to slice down the line for our cheesesteak today. And while those are chilling for a little bit, we're going to get back to that quick overview of knife sharpening 101. You'll notice that my block has two colors to it, the blue referring to a coarser 1000 grit stone, whereas the white is referring to a 6000 grit. Don't ask me what the grit physically represents, but hey, I can tell you that the higher the grit, the finer the finish. We'll start off with the 1000 grit medium roughness stone, passing the blade all across the stone. Now, I just want to say that I am an absolute beginner when it comes to whetstone, and sharpening is by all means an acquired skill. If you're interested in the topic and want to learn more, I highly recommend checking out one of my buddy's videos. That Weird Cook has an incredible tutorial that breaks down all the considerations you could possibly think of, gives you all the steps through the process, and presents the material in a fun and engaging manner. If you haven't checked out his channel yet, your life is simply incomplete. Link in the description, of course. Now, over in our little corner of the internet, the most important pieces are an even application of pressure and an assurance that you cover all portions of the knife. Once you've given the first side about 10 to 20 passes, you can flip and hit the other side of the knife, still with the coarse grit, after which you'll flip the stone to the 6000 grit side and repeat the process, about 10 to 20 passes again on both sides. But with that then taken care of and the sharpening debris washed off, let's see how she cuts, driving right through that pepper like it's butter. I probably went about this the wrong way, trying to get all fancy with skinning around the core of the green pepper. In the end, it really doesn't matter how you go about getting it done, so long as you get to the point where you can slice the bell pepper into thin slivers like this. Thin stalks so that they can cook more quickly later when we begin their sauté. Place on a plate to the side and reach for half of an orange bell pepper that's going to be broken down into slivers in just the same manner. Your half of a white onion will be handled by slicing from pole to pole, exposing one end and peeling back the top layer of the onion. From there, all you'll be doing is orbital slicing your way from one end to the other. Slicing in this manner allows us to maintain the natural dividing lines between the layers. This is what you're going to be breaking apart when you spread out your sliced onions over the veggie pan. Next up in our mix is going to be a handful of baby bella mushrooms, freshly washed. Pop out those fibrous stalks and begin slicing through the shrooms. Once down the center, then spin and chop away into little bits. Lastly, I'm a fan of pulling out a couple pickled jalapenos to give our cheesesteak just a bit of acidic spicy. Mince them up all haphazard-like and place them aside into a small prep cup. Alrighty, now we'll get our meat out that's been chilling in the freezer for the past 10 minutes or so. The colder temps lead to a more tense meat, which becomes easier to get a clean slice through. Again, you'll notice these long vertical striations to the muscle. We're looking to cut across them to shorten the muscle strands. Slice through the steak, making sure to get every last little bit of that pesky fat that doesn't want to split. Then roll the cut onto its side and slice into these long, skinny strands. All things considered, we have just over half a pound of sliced steak getting ready for seasoning. Today we're going to start things off ultra simple, just by hitting both sides with a touch of salt and pepper. And now with everything finally prepped, we're on our way over to the stovetop. Cast iron on a medium-high heat, lightly oiled with canola oil because you used way too much oil when you were going to season it last time. Toss in a test piece of garlic to see if everything is sizzling and warm, and then, if it's good, toss in your veggies. Sprinkle with a touch of salt to help extract a bit of water, and then sizzle these veggies away for the next 5 minutes or so, stirring frequently. While that's going, you have time to slice up your provolone cheese into wedges. Then, reach for your cheap whole wheat hoagie bun that you got from the grocery store because you couldn't be bothered to make it yourself. Slice it open, and then let's check on those veggies. Looking mighty steamy at this point. Sprinkle on in about half a teaspoon of dried oregano and mix around as necessary, then dollop in 1 teaspoon of garlic mince. Let that all saute down for the next 2 to 3 minutes or until the smell of raw garlic has dissipated. If you time things well, the peppers will have begun to lose their rigidity, with the onions being well on their way to translucent color. Right before pulling those veggies, we'll introduce the jalapenos for just long enough to get them warm. Pull all of those veggies aside into a container and quickly hit the pan with just a tablespoon or so of olive oil and slide on in your sliced beef. From here on out, the process is going to go by relatively quickly, just 4 minutes or so on the first side until browning develops. Flip, and then we're going to introduce a bit of this spicy chili crisp. About a tablespoon or so is going to bring out the pepperiness of the dish. And on top of that, we're going to couple it with 1 to 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce for umami. Mix that around to incorporate and let the steak finish its searing. Now, I'm going to pull almost all of the meat out except for the amount that I need for one sandwich. Slap a bit of that deluxe veggie mix back into the pan and pull everything over to the side. This is when you're going to place your bread into the pan to toast and soak up a bit of that leftover chili and oil. After a minute or so, that cheese will be plenty melty and delicious. And from here on out, simply stuff your sandwich and enjoy. I will be the first to say that this beast is not the easiest to eat without making a bit of a mess. Even when you cut it into smaller halves, it's still going to be a little bit to handle. But what I can say confidently is that what this sandwich lacks in cleanliness, it easily makes up for in deliciousness. The store-bought hoagie was a bit bready for my tastes, but everything else was magnificent. Savory, peppery, slightly spicy, and an all-around rich and fulfilling sort of sandwich. But I mean, why would you want to hear it out of the all-powerful voice of the narrator telling you how tasty this sandwich is a couple weeks away from when he's actually made it, when you could instead hear it from the guy who is about to eat one of the best lunches of the year? Maybe after he gets a napkin.
This is my favorite part of the recording process, where you just get to see me absolutely go to town on something delicious. Fantastically savory. The only thing that I was contemplating about adding to this would be like a sriracha aioli or something of the like. I ended up choosing not to, mainly because, well, 1, I forgot, and then 2, it's already got a hell of a lot of flavor all by itself. The creaminess would round off a little bit of the savoriness, just kind of tone it back a little bit. But the chili and the Worcestershire sauce paired perfectly, making it like a nice peppery kind of slightly spicy, but not overwhelmingly, but very savory, very spicy, very peppery.
Now, whatever that babbling was, I can tell you that the guy enjoyed that sandwich he just had. And if you decide that you want to try and make this yourself at home, make sure to let me know how it goes. I am happy to hear about it. For now though, that's all I have for you. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.